changed everything. Then she changed it all again.
Okay, so what did you think of the movie?
It was not what I thought it was going to be. Not sure what I thought it was going to be, but it wasn't that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I thought it was a lot more cartoony than I expected. And I think in a way it needed to be cartoony because Barbie is cartoony, but it also kind of contrasted the deep subplots and messages with the cartooniness. And if you're going to talk about something that's so shallow as Barbie's known to be, then there has to be some depth to the movie.
Yeah.
And there was in a lot of little different ways.
Right, and I think that's why, so I had seen some reviews going into it, mostly that it was stating like, this isn't a movie for little kids.
Yeah, it's not.
Because you think Barbie and you think, okay, so I'm going to bring my 10-year-old daughter to see the movie. And while I think a 10-year-old would have been fine, I think a lot of what was going on in the plot would have totally gone over their head and maybe even been boring at times.
Yeah, I think it probably would have been boring. I was thinking like maybe disturbing, but I don't think they would have gotten, they would have grasped the part that was like, made you like uncomfortable.
Yeah. So
yeah, it probably would have been more boring.
What would you say is the undertone or the underlying message in the Barbie movie?
The biggest one that I took away, I think, is that some things in life, like hobbies, like what I do all the time, are not supposed to be serious or like the dolls are not supposed to be true to life. They're supposed to be an escape from life and a fantasy world. They don't represent everything. They don't represent all of life. They can represent different parts of life, but that's not the intention. It's intended to be an escape from everything that you know, and you can live in this little fantasy land with these dolls. And just like any hobby, like what I have is, or if you're into woodworking or bird watching or whatever it is, it's a distraction from the realities of life, and it's not supposed to be like all true to life. Yeah,
I can get that. So for me, as a woman, as a cisgender woman, I think I was the most touched when the talk of patriarchy and women's roles. America Ferrera has a huge monologue kind of in the middle of the whole movie, and I had seen it on TikTok because everything gets spoiled on TikTok.
I'm not good enough for anything.
It is literally impossible to be a woman. You are so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough. Like, we have to always be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong.
So I had seen it, so I knew it was coming, so when it came, I recorded it for myself. But the first time I saw it on TikTok, it was like a punch in the gut because, sorry, I'm gonna get emotional, because it's definitely the way you feel as a woman.
Complain. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, but always stand out and always be grateful. But never forget that the system is rigged, so find a way to acknowledge that, but also always be grateful.
You're supposed to be this, but don't be too much of this, because then you're going to put you in a box. You know, you can be resourceful, but don't be too resourceful, because then you'll be considered this. Or, you know, be a mother and love your kids, but don't love them too much. Don't show them off too much because that can bug people. Or, you know, you have to have all these identities as a woman and how hard it is to be a woman. And I think, you know, she's explaining this to Barbie, where in Barbie land, all the women have all the positions. There is no patriarchy. Spoiler, Ken discovers patriarchy and tries to bring it into Barbie land.
But so can I interrupt you?
Go ahead.
So it was interesting in Barbie land, where all the women have all these positions, they still dress like Barbie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in real life, if a woman is in a position, a typically man's position, she usually has to dress like a man.
Yeah.
But because there wasn't that pressure there, she got to dress like a woman.
Yeah.
And no one, like it was
Didn't lessen
fine.
her.
It didn't lessen her credibility because she looked feminine
Right.
in a role that in the real life is usually a masculine role.
Yeah, like you had the CEO or the
construction
president,
workers.
The construction workers. Yeah.
Still look pretty.
Pretty, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was probably the whole thing about patriarchy and the reality of real women versus Barbie women. Even though I feel it was really important for Barbie to exist, especially when she was developed in the 1950s and women were pigeonholed into motherhood, nurse, teacher. Like
Right.
that was your
option.
choices.
Secretary. Yeah.
Secretary. And that the creators of Barbie said, no, she can also be a pilot. She can, you know,
Be a
go
doctor.
deep sea scuba diving. She can be a doctor. She can be all of these things. And I think that opened it up to little girls, that you have these options
Right.
to be more. But in having these options to be more, it also, there is this balance in the real world that, you know.
Right, and then there's the pressure that you have to be more.
Yeah.
And then it creates that pressure that not can you be more, but you should be more. And I think that's kind of that whole like women's lib thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you just because we're saying you can do it doesn't necessarily mean you should.
Should do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know I'm not an ultra
Yeah.
woman's liver.
Right.
Like, I want the door open for me. I want to be treated like a girl.
Which, as we were leaving, a gentleman held the door open for the two of us.
Two of us. But I'm not a woman's liver, but I applaud women that want to take that on, as long as
Right.
I'm not forced to take that on.
Right.
And that option for me to be feminine and be treated like
Right.
a woman isn't taken away from me because of them choosing not to.
Right, and if you choose not to take those on, then that's an okay choice as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought it was a very...
But there are like lots of different little subplots or
Yeah.
whatever, they're little messages that weren't really like resolved, but like left them hanging there to be discussed.
Yeah.
Because there was no bad guy and no good guy, and that's part of what we were talking about halfway through the movie. We're like, how is this going to end? Because you can't have a winner, because if you have a winner, then you have to have a loser, and there was no bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was very interesting. I like movies like that where there's no definitive bad guy or good guy, just people with different perspectives.
Yeah. At one point, I'm like, so maybe Ken's going to be the bad guy. Nope, it's not going to be Ken. Or maybe Mattel is going to be the bad guy when they brought Mattel in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Mattel's going to be the bad guy because they want to keep things status quo.
Right. Or maybe modern life or whatever.
But nobody was really the bad guy. Overall, I really thought it was a good movie. You know, it
started really slow and shallow, and I'm like, this is kind of weird. But I think that, a lot of times they have to like set a baseline,
Yeah.
and then, so you can see how the story develops.
Yeah. But I thought it was really good. I didn't think it started slow, but again, cisgender girl,
Right.
fan of Barbie. It was kind of neat to see Barbie Land come to life.
Right, because all of those houses were actual toys.
Toys. Yeah. So to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Look, I want to live in Barbie Land.
So there was a part in it where Ken takes over Barbie Land and tries to masculinize it.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of that part where it's like it becomes Ken Land?
Yeah. I didn't like it.
Right, but did you think it was, do you think the commentary on masculinity was appropriate?
Yeah, because in some ways, I think one of the subplots in this is that the Kens are emasculated.
Right.
They don't really have a purpose. They don't have dream houses. They exist to be there for the Barbies, but they don't really have a presence. They don't rule anything. They don't own anything. They're just kind of there.
Right. And do you think that was intentional, meaning that this is the way it's been for centuries, that women have this position?
Yeah.
That they're just the chattel
background. The background. Yeah.
So, you would recommend it?
I do think I would recommend it. Definitely. I don't think little kids, not because there's anything bad or naughty in it.
But there wasn't the slapstick that you see in like movies for little kids. Not a lot. Anyway.
No.
So yeah, it was definitely geared towards adults.
Yeah. But I would definitely recommend it. I think it was, considering it's the Barbie movie, I think it was a very smart movie. I think there's a lot to think about genders.
Almost like you want to see it again, though.
Yeah, on a different level, expecting something different. Yeah. So, yeah, okay. I would recommend
thank you. I appreciate you and having this best idea ever and inviting us to have a girl day.
Yeah, you're welcome. You looked great.
Thank you. You looked amazing.
Thank you. I tried, but you definitely rocked it. I know this wasn't your first pick, but I think your fans picked well. I think it was a good choice.
I think so too.
So anyway.
Well, have a good weekend, everybody.